Thanks so much. Thank you all for joining us this evening. So over the next 30 minutes, we will be discussing AI and the way to an unbiased and a better future. Bias has been a central problem in modern AI. It's sort of recognized, but it remains unsolved. Part of the problem is also that it's shaped by individuals, societies, and oftentimes it's unconscious. So to discuss this further, we've organized like a wonderful panel that's lined up to share their views and experiences. So without further ado, I'll let our panelists introduce themselves, starting with Anita, if that's okay.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Anita Schjoll Brede. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Iris.ai. We've built an AI engine for scientific text understanding, applied in a variety of different ways, whether it's for literature reviews, for academics. We have a suite of post-market surveillance tools for the pharma and medtech industry, and a data extraction tool for the chemical industry. So quite geeky, very highly technical, and a lot of fun. And we started the company 5.5 years ago. We've raised 4.5 million euros and are well on our way to start looking at our Series A. That's kind of like the early growth stage is where we're currently at.
That's great. So let's move on to Dr. Lisa. You want to go ahead?
Yes, hi. Hi, my name is Lisa Smith. I'm a co-founder and managing director of Prewave. We are a startup in Austria based in Vienna. Prewave is a supply chain intelligence platform. We are building a technology that detects and predicts supply chain risks. So basically, our algorithms analyze huge amounts of text data in more than 50 languages in order to extract risks, detect risks, for example, at a seaport or at a supplier of a big automotive company. So we are working with manufacturing companies who typically have between 500 or 10,000 suppliers, and we monitor their networks for them. We are also an early growth stage company, 4 years old. Yes, I'm looking forward to the panel.
That's great. Last but not the least, let's hear an intro from Penny.
Okay, sure. So my name is Penny Schiffer. I'm CEO and co-founder of Raized.ai. So exactly 2 years ago, I was in Silicon Valley attending a panel also on how to invest in AI companies. And I was there as an investor myself. And I asked the question to the VCs, hey, what do you think about using AI for your business? And they were like, no, this is for other people. And this was the moment when I thought, okay, this cannot stay like this. So we as investors also have to use AI. And what we have built now is a deal sourcing and startup evaluation engine. So we bring the power of data to the venture capitalists who want to find startups early, who want to evaluate them and take the right investment decisions. And we are based in Switzerland.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for the introductions. I think my first question would be to Lisa. Why is AI ethics important for you?
Yeah, thanks. So we are, as an AI startup, we are building cutting edge innovative technology that is really potentially can scale a lot. And that's our goal, that it scales a lot. And with any technology, you have a lot of benefits and you have impacts in the real world, but there are also some risks related to it. And especially since we are, as a VC-backed startup, building this technology in an environment that is just directed towards growth, towards scaling, towards just impacting a lot of users, I think we should, it's important for us to think early about what are potential risks that we have to manage early before we actually scale it massively. Why is it important? On the one hand side, of course, we as founders, but also all of our employees, they want to build something with good impact. Of course, that's the main thing, but there's also, of course, a business case behind it. Well, I'm convinced that trust plays really a big role in this, as a success factor for startups. So we need our users to trust us. We need our customers. These are enterprise customers. So it's important that we are professional. We are not in the news for some, problematic effect that our technology potentially had. And of course, trust from investors and public funding agencies. So that's why I think it's really important for us to manage these risks early, which doesn't mean like we are all day, busy with looking for that, but we just have a pragmatic approach of every now and then looking at a bigger picture and looking at the most important risks and managing them. I believe this is important for our future success.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And yeah, maybe shifting gears to like Penny and Anita, like what sort of examples have you noticed in the, what types of biases exist in AI?
Yeah. So we have tested and trained an algorithm to predict which startup can make it from a seed investment to a Series A. And we have used several variables that are indicative or that can help to assess this. And one of them is the location. So you can imagine if you sit in Silicon Valley or if you sit in a rural area, this certainly makes a difference. And we have used historical data to train it, which is a valid and only way to do it. But now with COVID, we have the situation that the location importance and the location ecosystem relevance is going to shift for sure. So we can sit on an island and build a startup that before would have been only possible, for example, to build in New York. And we think that we have to retrain and take this into consideration so that our algorithms don't bias towards what was successful in the past, but what can be successful in the future. So that's a very tangible example of how we have to be careful to not make a bias stay forever and therefore come to the wrong conclusions.
And what do you think, Anita?
No, so I think that the topic, which is framed as bias in AI, is in a way interesting because it's not the AI system that's biased, it's the data, right? And I think we have to fundamentally understand that. It's not that the technology that's the problem, it's the data we use, right? And it's not that humans are less biased than AI, right? It's the human data that we produce that is biased, and then we amplify it with an AI system, and then it becomes really problematic, but it was already problematic before. But one very tangible example that we had is very, very early in the company, as we were kind of writing the first few lines of code, we wanted to build a system where you can input one research paper and find other research papers based on that, right? Mm-hmm. And there is a system, there is a connected network of data, the citation system, for those not familiar with it, with one author has cited other people, right? And that seems like an obvious place to start, right? You have the citation system and everything is connected and you can just build off of that. But the problem is that is a fundamentally flawed and biased system. And so if we were to build our algorithms on top of that data and use that, well, we would just like amplify the fact that more funded research institutions, have more citations, so they'll be more visible, et cetera, right? There's a number of problems in that space. So we decided to okay, let's skip the citation system entirely. We're bypassing that, which meant we had to do a lot more work to get the technology working into a place where it was actually giving customer value. On the flip side, I think there is an added value now that we've done that. Our capabilities are way more powerful than what they would have been if we would have locked ourselves into that citation system. So it was hard in the beginning, but it was the right thing to do because we didn't want to just amplify the biases that existed. And now that's starting to pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great point. Short term, not so great, but long term, you're creating more opportunity, more sort of customer value. Maybe on the technical side of things, Lisa, how do you see what are the steps that need to happen in the AI development workflow process, if you will, to make sure your system is more fair, less biased?
Yeah, like Anita said, a lot is connected to the data that you actually use. And what we did in our companies, we developed an own platform where we generate training data, where we have people also labeling data for our natural language processing algorithms. And we usually, we don't just take a judgment from one person, but from several people. So that already limits maybe a personal bias of the annotator. We have several quality checks, and we take always samples to basically check them again in order to measure if we have any systematic bias coming in. And we have also people with different backgrounds working as annotators. So in that way, that can help, of course. Yeah? But still, on a bigger side, you always have to think of, is there maybe just some systematic bias by designing the whole data science task? And so we as data scientists have to question ourselves. And what we do regularly is we connect with other stakeholders who are really from a different field. They're social scientists or from NGOs and so on. We discuss the tasks that we are working on just to get some new ideas in, because the engineers working at our company, they are from different cultural backgrounds, but still the same professions. And we are mostly engineers in our company. So I see this risk that we are in this bubble. So I can just encourage also other technical companies to reach out to other stakeholders. In the beginning, sometimes it's you have to first find a common language to really exchange ideas. But in the end, it proved to be really inspiring for us. And again, coming back, what also Anita said, like it was hard in the beginning, but delivered more value. We came up with ideas that we wouldn't haven't come up with if we were just the engineers alone, let's say.
Yeah. That's a great point. And maybe like looking for views from the others as well. Like, how do you ensure that there's sort of win-win opportunities where a less biased, more ethical solution can lead to more customer value?
I think for us that the example of citations is a really good one, because it led us, like the engine we have today for scientific text understanding, it means we're not limited just to research papers, for example, right? And the competence that we build can now be applied to patents and internal documents and clinical trials and bits and pieces of text, right? So that's really powerful as well. And I think, similar to what Lisa mentioned, we're 20 something people from 11 different nationalities, 16 different countries represented with people who lived everywhere, and that helps, right, to bring in perspectives a little bit more. And then obviously, you want to collaborate with research we collaborate with a lot of academic institutions around the world, so we have those conversations as well. So keep challenging yourself to question the decisions made is also important, and again, it brings business value longer term.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What do you think, Penny?
Yeah, I think it's important to also keep the user in mind. So users oftentimes want to have a choice. So for example, we are measuring signals of startups, which startup has more traction, which startup is recognized, which startup probably might start fundraising. Mm-hmm. And we could just give the users a score that is like a black boxy super magic score. But users have their own perspective or hypothesis, and we want to give users a choice how they would like to combine our signals into their scoring system. So we give users a choice that they understand how we define the ranking, or even give them the possibility to adjust the ranking according to what they think is important. So for example, if they are totally into Twitter followers, we should give them a choice to weigh this higher than TikTok followers, for example, or any other signal, because we notice if we give a super duper black box scory result, users don't accept it. They want to understand what the model did and what were the input factors, even to the point that we may disclose too much or make it like seem blunt. But we have to find a balance between this disguising or not showing exactly what we do against the users really want to have a transparent judgment that they can understand still.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you touched on a really good point on explainability, interpretability of machine learning models. Also curious to hear Lisa's thoughts on this. Like, how advanced is this field at all? Can you easily know, the variables or the factors that predicts an algorithm, for example?
Well, yes, it really depends on the algorithm, how explainable it is and on the technologies used. But I think in most solutions, it's a combination of different algorithms. So I think this is still a very tricky issue to make it explainable. On the one hand side, first for the data scientists, looking back, there are some algorithms where it's really hard to tell now why a certain decision has been made, especially in supervised algorithms, which are based on training data, and it really lives on by the data. But I think we can make efforts to make it more understandable, and we've also seen that our users actually like that they understand, and that they also have an influence on certain factors, that what Penny just mentioned. So I think as a firm, you can make an effort to make it better, but I think it's not really easy. I would like to say it's like super easy to make an AI algorithm explainable, but there's research going on to basically develop new algorithms that are better explainable, but especially because oftentimes it's such a combination. Like in our case, it's really a pipeline of different algorithms going together. It's really hard to make it explainable, but at least you can make an effort now.
And maybe just like a bit of a rhetorical question, really, but we'd love your views. Like, is regulation the way to go? Should government policy mandate explainable algorithms, or like I think you mentioned Lisa and Anita as well, like your customers ask for it. They want a trustworthy algorithm. They want a company or brand that they can relate to, that aligns with their values, etc. What do you think is the solution here? Is it private companies deciding, or should it be mandated or regulated?
I think it really depends on what industry we're talking about. Like, and I mean, we work with a lot of our tools. We work with corporates, like Lisa, said as well. And with our data extraction tool, like our customers want, confidence scores all along. They want to know exactly where the tool is less confident, more confident, what should they double check? What should they verify everything, right? So there is a clear demand. I don't think, like, let's take Facebook as a random example, right? Like, I don't think the average consumer who isn't paying for a product and therefore is the product, they're not going to have that same eagerness and deliberate asking for explainability. Should they still get it? Should we still get it when we're using social media? Yeah, I think we should. Like, you're seeing this because of this, right? But there, I don't know if we'll see kind of a consumer movement. We've seen the start, right? But I don't know if we'll see it strong enough. And there might be pressure. I mean, we're seeing with GDPR and kind of there's efforts, right? But the thing is, lawmakers are always years behind because of the nature of governments. So I don't know if it can, but I think it should in some industries. But in other industries, it is self-solvable because the clients will demand it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially like in the ones like fintech, criminal justice, and like healthcare, etc.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, Penny? Would love to hear.
I think GDPR definitely is an important topic, and it's in our case very important to understand who is the founder of a company. But then on the other hand, you should not go and build profiles about people in a way that is not accepted and that is actually already governed by law. So that's a challenge here to still come to predictions, I'd say. And maybe one thing I wanted to mention also, I mean, when you think about the explainability and the different aspects of how you can build a data pipeline and what you do, then we notice that in some cases, our users are already happy with us providing them with information that is not even rated, when they can be the first ones to find it. So when we started off, we were very much into the assessment of the company. So what's the unicorn startup going to be? But then we noticed that with competition for access being high, it's already a big challenge, and it's a big achievement to just provide the startups and show the users new items on a list on a regular basis. And we have put in a lot of effort into building that. So we now discover more than 2,000 startups per month for Europe. And only now we go back to the evaluation phase even more and apply those scores now that we have done this first thing that the users wanted foremost. And this was also a bit of a surprise for me. When I initially started out, I thought that the machine learning evaluation scoring would be more important, and it's only becoming important now again. So we did quite a bit of data engineering and to get the proper data and to get this all automated, which I did not expect in the beginning, to be honest. Like 2 years ago, when I was at this panel, I was thinking more about the machine learning bit than the data engineering piece.
Yeah. And maybe a side topic, do you have any anecdotes to share that sort of broke your biases, perhaps, when you saw the results of your companies?
Well, we tried to get some of the variables to be meaningful, and one variable that we just didn't find meaningful was the attending of an acceleration program. So a lot of startups do go through acceleration programs, and we set a variable that would judge if a company went through one of the top global programs. And we thought, okay, this must definitely make a difference. But in our big training set of 40,000 companies, we couldn't make it work. So maybe the training data was flawed, or maybe we chose the wrong acceleration programs, or it doesn't make a difference. Who knows? But this was a bit of a surprise for me, because acceleration programs definitely are hyped and they can be great for some companies, but we couldn't see a pattern that was strong enough against any other variable that we used.
Yeah. And among the customers that you had, or in VCs, for example, were there any surprises or shocks there as well? Because I think VC as an industry has not been, traditionally transparent, or also going with the status quo of many other sectors, mostly investing in a certain type of demographic, for example.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. So there is, let's say here in Switzerland, the typical hyped company is 3 guys out of an engineering top class university. And the funny thing is, all the VCs want to go after the same type of company or the same type of team, which leads to a bit of over-evaluation, while some other teams may not fit the box and they are less on the spot. And this can be a good opportunity for other investors to spot those hidden gems, because they may still be equipped in a way that is amazing, but they don't fall into the obvious categories. So I'd say definitely there is a thing here. And now with COVID, it has become much more transparent to meet people. So this, being connected to the right people has become less important. So even here, I'd say that the transparency also goes towards creating access opportunities that didn't exist before. But that doesn't come from the algorithm, but from the transparency and the availability of information per se.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we discussed yesterday, Lisa and Anita also had some experiences in approaching VCs and their biases as well. Maybe like to sort of wrap up the conversation, like what do you think is the road to a fairer AI? Like what steps should companies take to minimize, the risk of algorithm bias for business leaders, but also technical people alike?
I think one of the really important things, and especially with considering where we're speaking right now, I think one of the key elements is diversity. And I think it's really important to understand, because to a lot of people, diversity still means like being nice, right? Oh, we will bring in some more women to the company because we're nice. Oh, we're bringing some more people of color to the company because we need to be nice, right? And that is not it, right? If you're going to build the AI systems of the future, and you're going to want to avoid to build in some biases that are going to radically backfire at some point, you're going to want a team that has different lived experiences, right? Because you're going to want a team that goes, wait a minute, based on my experience, this is probably a bad idea, right? This is probably a biased data set. This is probably like, should we think this one through? And so diversity becomes a key challenge in building a fairer AI that will also not backfire, and that will bring you business value. And whether you do that inside of the company, or Lisa, as you mentioned, kind of bring in outside perspectives every now and then, there's plenty of ways to solve that. But I think that is such a key to like not, I think it was Patton who said that if everyone is thinking the same, then no one's really thinking. And you have to bring in that perspective and bring in that diversity in the conversations simply with people who have different lived experiences. And that's really important for business. And it's not about being nice. And especially in the world of AI, with these biases that we really kind of enhance and multiply with the algorithms.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a vicious cycle, really, with the data that we collect and the algorithms we create. Lisa, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think practically for AI startups, so what could be ways to fair AI? What we do is we connected with the university, and we're developing a toolkit actually for AI startups to identify risks. And this is based or very similar also to the Ethical US, which is already online. So you can Google that, Ethical US. They identified 8 different risk zones, and you have like a checklist, and you can just do a small workshop as long as you wish. It could be for 1 hour, it could be 4 hours, with some selected selected colleagues from your company, and basically go through the questions just to identify the risk zones, because that was a risk we saw is that we really have some black areas where just nobody thinks about, and this really helps, and this inspired also very meaningful conversations. So this is one way to go, I think, just to basically create this awareness in the team, and create also a culture for that people, like once they have a feeling for, okay, there could be something wrong, really also bring it to the table, bring it to they know that there is somebody listening when they have concerns about bias or ethical issues. I think that's what I would recommend for AI startups.
What a great point. Yeah, keeping it, front, right, and center, and being very aware of the biases we have. Would you have? What do you think, Penny?
Well, actually, that I can only agree. So that's perfect. Just be aware and try to understand that there are biases. This would already help a lot. And it may be hard to realize that there is biases, and sometimes you do not even know what to do or what your users will make of it, because you cannot always avoid it, and sometimes you don't want to, or it's just not possible. So living with the bias may also be a necessity. So, but being aware of it is definitely the first step. And I think there you also have to do more exploratory and hypothesis-driven analysis of the data to understand it. You have to look for the bias to find it. It's not that it will jump in your face. It may also be hidden, and you don't want it to be there, so you are not looking for it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I mean, Penny, you might be the company of the three companies represented here that has the most thorny, bias issues as well, because you're helping predict, you're helping people predict where they should put their money, right? And it's based on data from the past, and sometimes that past was those three men that only invested in their local little bubble, right? And so how do you, it's a super interesting. It's not a question for you, but it's just like it's a super interesting case of like how do you not just scale those biases up, but like still you can't like invent your own data to make the world fairer, right? So it's a very interesting.
No, that's true. But when you look at the feature importance of the more gender-related and people-related aspects, they are important, but they are not that important. So that's also something where we know there is a bias, but the bias is not driving the whole prediction. So therefore, I'm aware, but I'm not super concerned as for now. But it's a good question, and it will become more important, especially since people are now looking to find, for example, female-founded companies. So we even have to present them a biased recommendation to find those. This may also be, a user request even.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can promise you that we are seeking female founders, and I know many VCs that are also seeking. I guess the numbers are moving, but very slowly. Absolutely. Yeah. So closing off, I think we have like 2 more minutes left. What is the way to building a less biased AI? Being aware that we're all biased. We all have unconscious biases. Not going with data-driven solutions, because data might be biased at the end of the day. As well, so we don't perpetuate the cycle. Being aware of your biases and involving, rooting out biases in every step of the AI development process. That's the key to hopefully move in the right direction. But a lot more needs to be done on that side, on the tech front and the business side of things. But hopefully this has been useful. Thanks so much for our panel for taking the time and sharing their views.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye.